I'm going to go live on Facebook right now. And then everywhere else. I wish there was just a way to do it all with just pressing one button. That way when you're live on everywhere. Hey, what's up, everybody? Hey, the very important stuff I'm going to be talking about like today. I've actually, in my work that I've been doing for End Abortion Now, I've been doing some social media testing, and I found some incredible revelations and evidence that YouTube specifically suppresses pro-life content, and I'm going to show you that. So hang on, that's coming, but it's going to be part of a bigger narrative with what the Gospel Coalition is doing. So very, very important that you share this video right now, because that stuff is it's pretty obvious. Actually, it doesn't get much more obvious than that. So go ahead and share that. Let me just take a moment and get the chat set up because I don't want to miss what you guys are talking about at all. But I needed to reveal this information to you guys. This needed to be done because I think it's newsworthy. I think they're trying to hide it, but they're unable to. Wow, I have a lot of windows open. I have a lot of windows open. Okay, I think for the most part, one more window. I need one more window open. This is out of control. Out of control. Let's see. One more window. And then we will get started. How's everybody doing today in the chats? By the way, while I'm taking the time to do this, please share. If you haven't shared already, go ahead and do that. Would really appreciate that. Okay, I think the chats are good. We're good on Periscope. Periscope hasn't shut me down because I think we're good. We're good on Periscope. Let's see. Yep, we're live on Periscope. People are watching in. Okay, so first off, just for those people that are just tuning in, I've uncovered some information that shows that YouTube, Google, specifically bans. Let's just jump right into that. I think that's pretty important. Then we'll jump into the other part. But I want to jump into this. The YouTube is strategically demonetizing videos that are specifically from a pro-life cause. They're part of a pro-life. If the videos are pro-life, they're getting demonetized. I know there's been problems with this on Apologia, for sure. There's been problems with this in other places, certainly, but we haven't been able to really pinpoint and nail down what it is that causes the videos to be demonetized until now, because I've been working on it. I've been working on making this happen. This is very important. So please, if you're watching this, share it on all your social media platforms. I think what I'm about to show to you guys is quite newsworthy. And what happened was I came across this guy that has a Patreon. And the Patreon is called Demonetized. Now, what I'm about to show you, just for warning, has a lot of vulgarity and explicitives in the words. You'll see that on a spreadsheet. But anyway, this guy has a Patreon, and you can pay this guy per month, and you can have him test monetization on different categories and words and stuff on YouTube. And basically what he does is very simple. He uploads a very basic video that's like 1 second long, but he changes the title of the videos to different keywords. And those keywords trigger the YouTube algorithm to either monetize or demonetize. And he has lots of checks and balances in that. He makes sure that he does a lot. He doesn't just upload without checks and balances. So I found his word list, and I'll show this to you actually really quickly. I don't. Fair warning. There's a lot of vulgarity here that's important, but it'll also reveal some other things. So basically, what he does is he has a demonetization spreadsheet. Now, this is something he gives his patrons access to. This is pretty much every possible word you could think of, and in fact, the entire word list is about 15,000 words towards the bottom here. Over 16,000 words right here. And so pretty much what happens is these words are either green or they're yellow. If they're yellow, the YouTube demonetizes them. So for example, if you go here, you can see that blogs is demonetized. There's also a lot of pornographic words that are demonetized, that are legitimately pornographic, as you can see. But there's also a lot of words that shouldn't be demonetized. For example, Texas is a demonetized word. Now, why the state of Texas is demonetized, I have no idea. I think it has something to do where they actually demonetize videos that have to do with current events or tragic current events. So, 9/11 is demonetized. Texas is demonetized because of the Texas shooting in the church or whatever. So sort of like any sort of, that's probably my guess. But in so doing, any video talking about the state of Texas is demonetized. So that obviously makes us want to ask the question, well, what about pro-life words, right? So I took this guy's ideas, and so here's what I did, and you can see this here. I uploaded 10 videos. Now, all of these videos I did 2 tests. So one, the pro-life video says essentially, thank you for watching my video about being pro-life. And then this one says, thank you for watching my video about being pro-choice. And so these videos, right here, I titled simply pro-life, pro-choice, no sound, abortion. So if you look at abortion is limited. It is demonetized, right? This video right here has no sound. And then this video right here, pro-choice, look at this. So these are 2. There's one video, all it is called pro-choice. That's the only way, besides the audio of me saying being pro-choice, that's the only way YouTube has to know what the content of the video is. And it's pro-choice. The audio says it's pro-choice. Everything about this video is pro-choice. It is monetized, right? But this video, pro-life, all it is titled pro-life. And it has a video that says this is a video about being pro-life. Demonetized. Now, the audio in this instance doesn't matter, because what I did was I titled them video 1, video 2, video 3, video 4, and they were all monetized. So YouTube wasn't exactly picking up the audio. And I think they might do an audio check once it's published publicly, but when it's behind the scenes and delisted like this, they don't do that. So just showing you guys that this pro-life video right here is demonetized simply because it's titled pro-life. But the pro-choice is monetized. So what does that mean? If you guys are watching right now, like, what does it mean that these videos are monetized? So if they're about pro-choice, or actually if you look at 2, there's another one, women's rights. Women's rights is a monetized word. So you can see that right here, women's rights. So women's rights, abortion is demonetized in general. You can't talk about abortion. It seems like they actually demonetized any sort of medical video, so I don't want to say that that word itself is, but it probably is. You can't monetize medical videos or of any medical condition. It appears. But anyway, when you say pro-life, you're demonetized. Pro-choice, you are monetized. Women's rights, you are monetized. So what does this matter? What does this matter when we're talking about this stuff? Well, the reason it matters is because YouTube wants to fund the videos that are on their platform. The cost of uploading all these videos is incredibly expensive. So what they do is they prioritize the monetized videos in the search. So a lot of you are probably thinking, why are you going to monetize videos about the gospel? Why do you monetize videos about the gospel? Well, the reason we want videos about the gospel to be monetized is because we want them to come up to the top of the search. It's pretty simple. It's not that hard. It's not that difficult. We want YouTube to show it. Now, here's the problem. If I'm doing a video about pro-life things or about the pro-life position, that means I have to title my video something that doesn't use the word pro-life. So now you have a problem where your video is not searchable, or people don't know what your video is really about. And so it creates all this sort of confusion for the search algorithm. It's really nasty. And so when we have evidence that shows that they are demonetizing pro-life and pro-choice, there's a clear distinction here on what they monetize and what they don't. And so this makes it incredibly difficult for people who are pro-life to find videos, let's say, about pro-life arguments. If you wanted to make a video about pro-life arguments, it's going to be at the very bottom. If you want to make a video about voting for somebody that is pro-life, it's going to be at the very bottom. It's clearly a sort of bias towards that, and this needs to be called out. Like, this needs to make the news. This information needs to be shared. It's incredibly important. Anybody can do this test, by the way. If you go to YouTube, if you have a monetizable channel anyway, anybody can do this test. You just upload a video and put in a keyword and wait a few hours, and it'll come back as whether it's monetized or demonetized. So that's pretty much all I have to say about that. I think it's very important. I hope you guys think it's as important as I do, because I certainly think it's a big deal. It's a massive problem, and we need to know about these things, because we're trying to compete in a new media world, and we have to know that if you title your video certain ways, that things are not to your favor. As a Christian, you are swimming against the stream in this social media algorithmic world, and it's not good. It's not good, and I hope that evidence is sufficient for you guys. Please share this video. Please let people know about that. I think it's very, very important information. It's very helpful information, especially for people who do abortion clinic ministry. By the way, I just said abortion, so this video is not going to be monetized, so you have to share it. But it also, for the record, it also shows why it's good. Super chats are good, because super chats don't depend on monetization. So when you guys send me a super chat, like the other day, people were sending me super chats to share the gospel with people. That video would not be demonetized. That it would not. We were talking about, well, actually, it wasn't demonetized anyway, because CBS copyright striked it. But it also wouldn't be monetized because we were talking about, like, what's the moral authority and moral justification to say that rape is wrong? You use the word rape in a video, you're not going to be monetized. And this isn't just a problem. This is important. This isn't just a problem for Christians. This is a problem for everybody. Every YouTube creator is having this problem. If you watch major YouTube creators like H3H3 and all these other guys, they'll tell you, like, we had a video we were going to make, and we decided not to publish it because we did some tests, and in those tests the video didn't even get monetized, so they didn't do the whole video. So you have YouTube creators that are doing test videos now to determine if they can even make a video. Like, that's a big problem, especially for people who make their living on this platform, that they've created this system that's so icky and complex that nobody can really, not even like secular people can use it, because any word they say, or, I mean, you watch videos now, and a part of it's good, right? Because all the cussing is bleeped out. So we say, well, hey, well, that's a good benefit. Like when you watch a video, even the pagans now are bleeping out their swear words. But I think they've gone to such an extreme that it's just becoming way too hard to build a platform on social media channels. And it's discouraging, especially to a lot of Christians who have the talent and ability to really do this. It's discouraging. But here's the good news. Here's the good news. This is why I lump these two video topics together. The good news is that Christians are winning. We're winning this. I was hoping to put that in the full screen a lot longer than I did, and I just realized it was. Sorry. We're winning. We're winning this. It is happening. The reason we know that we are winning is because of articles from the Gospel Coalition. Now, the Gospel Coalition has been pushing the social justice, critical race theory garbage for the past few years now. And it's become a real danger, what the Gospel Coalition has become. Now, initially, several years ago, they could push this stuff subtly and people would go, oh, I disagree with it. And they would maybe make a comment on the Facebook page, or they would make a comment on the website. And, you know, the Gospel Coalition would just block people. They would just block you from any sort of disagreement. They blocked me. I'm actually blocked from the Gospel Coalition because I made a sarcastic joke years ago. Like at the time, I didn't even have anything against the Gospel Coalition. I think it was just a joke about how they title their articles or something. It was just done, and it was lighthearted and fun. It wasn't meant to be mean or anything, and I got blocked for it. This was years ago, before they even started doing stuff. So they've been blocking people like crazy on their social media, which, by the way, is number one thing when you're running a social media channel not to do, is block everybody, because they get mad and they post that you're blocked by them, and it brings more attention, negative attention, to what you're doing. It's called the Streisand effect. So why they keep doing this, I have no idea, but it shows an incredible lack of not understanding how social media works by blocking people, for sure. So recently, the Gospel Coalition posted a blog by Kevin Deyoung, and this blog is titled 7 Questions to Ask Evaluating Online Pundits. This article was brought to me. I found it in my Twitter feed, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about this article. I haven't been able to stop thinking about the meta that this article says. It's very problematic. And before we get into this, I want to explain a scenario or a situation. Several years ago, in order to be a taxi cab driver in New York City, you had to have a medallion. And this medallion cost upwards of $1 million. And so how it worked is, there were only a limited number of these medallions given by the city of New York that people could drive a taxi cab. So there were only a very limited number. And so when somebody died, they could pass this medallion on. They could sell the medallion. They could do whatever. And people mortgaged their homes for the opportunity to have a medallion. And then in addition to having a medallion that cost millions of dollars, you had to have legitimate taxi cabs. They had to be painted yellow. They had to have the protective barriers, to keep people from being robbed at gunpoint. They had to have all these things. They had to have a credit card swiper in the back. There's just all these different if you've ever ridden in a New York City taxi, you know that it is pretty decked out in terms of what it. So the car itself you had to have. You had to own the car. A lot of taxi cab industries said if you want to, you don't. If they have the medallion, they can let you drive. But in order to do that, you had to own the car. And so there were people mortgaging their homes for a taxi cab because that was a good way to get a job and get paid in New York. But then something happened. Can you guess? Can you guess what happened? Lyft and Uber happened. So Lyft and Uber decentralized this entire industry. Now, imagine for a moment that you just mortgaged your house. You were able to buy this medallion, and you know that if you work every single day for the next 20 years, you'll be able to pay off this medallion and start making profit. But then Uber and Lyft come, and suddenly every Joe Schmo with any sort of car is riding around picking people up, and what's worse is that people are using it. I mean, imagine this. Imagine the amount of money you spent on this taxi cab, on this medallion, on this ability to provide for your family. And out comes a little app, a little social media app. And nobody cares about yellow taxis in New York City anymore. That's pretty awful. And we see that happening now with the Gospel Coalition. Now, the Gospel Coalition functions as a gatekeeping institution. So this gatekeeping institution, they have meetings every day about platforms and who they're going to platform. And should this person write for this blog? Should we mention this person by name? They see themselves as the gateway into evangelicalism. And they've done this for years. This is they congratulations, Kevin DeYoung, or congratulations, whoever. You're going to be able to write on the Gospel Coalition's website. It's a big deal. It's a massive deal. It's important. But then comes the internet, right? So the Gospel Coalition has done publishing well. Crossway, the Gospel Coalition, they've all managed to take over the Christian bookstores and do publishing. But suddenly, they're not able to really, suddenly they're starting to see that people aren't looking to those who write books as the thought leaders anymore. Suddenly the people who write for the Gospel Coalition aren't taking as seriously just because they're on the Gospel Coalition anymore. The guys who are speaking at the Gospel Coalition's conferences aren't seen as leaders. And they're seen, even more importantly, as people who are wrong about things. And what the internet has done, it has become the Gospel Coalition's Uber and Lyft. The Gospel Coalition is having a meltdown right now because there are people who make online content like me, like Apologia Studios, like Cross Politic, the Fight Laugh Feast Network, and goodness, like A.D. Robles, who is killing it right now. He is killing it right now. And I honestly believe that this article right here, AD was in mind when this was being written. Now, of course, they didn't mention him by name, because if they mentioned him by name, they would have been platforming is like a real thing. And they're really afraid of platforming anybody. I'm going to show why not being afraid of that is actually more beneficial. But they're terrified of platforming anybody, even for negative reasons. And so they wouldn't mention him by name. But it is here. You know that this is a result of AD. And so this is, there are several, I was looking for this article, and there were several other articles talking about social media algorithm, all of them negative, with their patented gospel coalition. Not every way we use something is bad, but most of the time it is, sort of style, right? Food isn't bad, but you can always become a glutton. Like they always do that obvious sort of stuff. So I really appreciate the work AD is doing. And if you have not subscribed to his channel, by the way, if you type in, his channel is titled AD. But if you just type in the Gospel Coalition and AD Robles together, it'll come out. Because, we'll talk about this, AD is owning the SEO. AD, somebody asked who. It's ADROBLES. That's how you spell his name. AD space ROBLES. I think that's correct. So, and you can find him on Twitter, like at Real AD Robles. Actually, let me tag him in the chat so it's there for the record. AD Robles. Real AD Robles. So, so that's how you can find AD on Twitter. He absolutely should be followed. The stuff he's doing in bringing out the liberalism and the Gospel Coalition is fantastic. And I don't know a better expert on it, which is ironic for this article, as we shall see. So let's go. Let's dive into this. So again, it starts out with one of the cliche Gospel Coalition lines they do. One of the best things about the internet is that anyone can state his opinion about anything. And one of the worst things about the internet is that anyone can state his opinion about anything. Now, nobody questions this as a fact. Nobody cares. Nobody questions this. As like everybody agrees but that's the problem with decentralization, right? Again, we can take the same thing to Uber and say, one of the best things about Uber is that anybody can pick up a car and drive. One of the worst things about Uber is that anybody can pick up a car and drive, right? So it's nothing like that's just decentralization. One of the best things about drones is that you don't need a helicopter license. You don't need a helicopter pilot to get a good shot. One of the worst things about drones is you don't need a helicopter license to get a good shot. Every time something is decentralized, it creates a problem in terms of its ability to be equally accessed. Now, what's interesting about this first line is one of the worst things on the internet is that anyone can say his opinion about anything. And right off the bat, they expose the fact that they don't really want anyone to state their opinion about things. That's the very front line of this article is presenting that case. So that should give you a little bit of a pause as to what we're going to see. And this is the same revolution has also made invincible ignorance more sustainable, pervasive crankery more common, and the ability to discern what voices are worth listening to harder than before. I don't know about you guys, but I don't have a problem determining who I should listen to. It's pretty easy. Somebody said, Mark, don't let Marcus drive you around. That is a true fact. I am not the best driver in the world. Not even close. It would be bad. I would be one of the bad Uber drivers. Thanks for that, Metal Gear. But anyway, one of the things here is there's this protection of how do we know if we should listen to somebody? How do we know if we should take somebody seriously? We have to look at their education. We have to look at their degrees. We have to see if they have a credible life and all these things. And some of that is true. But ultimately and foundationally, what's important to realize here is whether or not somebody is in good standing with a local church is absolutely important. And we'll get into this. It's absolutely important and critical to whether or not someone is a credible figure. However, it doesn't necessarily always make what they say not credible. There's a lot of people that I listen to that are really smart and credible that don't even go to. They're not even a Christian. So they fail here in making these rules, and we'll see that right off the bat. They'll begin with exceptions to the rule, and they'll end with, well, all of these rules have exceptions, which to me completely just defeats the entire purpose of this article at this point, because no one's arguing that. But what we're going to see here is a massive case of the gatekeepers realizing that they don't control who goes in anymore, and it's bad news for them. It's really bad news. So again, here we go. There's no putting the genie back in the bottle. Now, what's the genie in the bottle? The fact that everybody can have an opinion on things. That is not something that should have ever been put in the bottle to begin with. Like the idea that people can have opinion on different things needs to be put in a bottle. That's scary. Like, that is a scary level of control the Gospel Coalition is fighting for, and says even if more news and punditry is being curated these days, it's still the case that anyone with a strong opinion and self-discipline, or blinding rage, the case may be, to blog and tweet and post consistently, can command a following and wield a level of influence that would have been unthinkable 20 years ago. Praise the Lord. Like, the answer to that should be, praise God. Praise God. In order to say something or to speak on something, I don't have to have a contract from Zondervan or Lifeway. I don't have to be seen as a publisher or an author or part of your club to be seen as credible on the things that I say. The internet has freed up the ability for people to talk. And this isn't a bad thing at all, because, as they say, people can say whatever they want, and that's a bad thing. But the fact that people can say whatever they want adds a level of inherent accountability. I can't just make up anything on my video right now without knowing that people are going to make videos or tweet or post comments that correct me where I'm wrong. Right? That's just what's going to happen. And so it's good. It's good news that the genie cannot be put in the bottle. It should have never been there anyway. This is what, just imagine for a moment, the Gospel Coalition are the priests, the Catholic priests, and they're not Catholic, but they're the priests at the start of the printing press. And they're concerned that people are taking over. They're concerned about what's happening here. It's a problem for them. It's a big deal. It's an issue. Because what you have now, because of the internet, is you have people printing out books without the Gospel Coalition, without Crossway, without Zondervan, without Lifeway. They're printing out information without going through their presses, without getting their approval. This is what's happening. And it's fantastic to see, and it brings me so much joy that they even felt a need to write about this article. Now, let's get into some of the problems of their points. So here are some 7 things that we need to ask when we're determining if an individual online is credible or an authority or not. And each one of these has massive problems that shows that they don't understand how the internet works. And they also don't understand how artistic interpretation works either. And we'll get into that as well. So the first one is, does this person inhabit a healthy web of family and friends? This is important. I honestly think this is a good one. But again, what we have to see here is that just because somebody doesn't have a healthy web of family and friends, that doesn't necessarily mean what they're saying is wrong. There's a lot of people on the internet that are adulterers. There's a lot of political pundits that don't have good marriages, that have been divorced, that have been caught in adultery. But that doesn't mean what they say is wrong. An example of this, of course, is Donald Trump. His marriage is just a sham, right? Like this is his third wife that's in the White House right now, and Melania, but it doesn't necessarily mean everything Donald Trump does is wrong because his marriage is wrong. So if Donald Trump says something, I can't go, well, I can't really take him seriously. He's had 3 wives. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't it's just not a standard for determining whether or not somebody is a credible source. If somebody, for example, had an affair and they come to me and say, hey, they knock on my door and they say, hey, I just want to let you know that, your pipe, your toilet is leaking all into the street. I'm not going to be like, you've had an affair. I can't take you seriously. What's wrong with you? Right? Like, so that sort of stuff matters. Now, when we're talking about religious things, it is important that these people have a healthy family and life. I don't want to necessarily platform somebody who is been kicked out of ministry because they're disqualified. I wouldn't want to take them too seriously, but that doesn't necessarily mean the things that they say are always wrong. And that's the point we need to understand in this first topic. So for the most part, as I said in the beginning, I agree with this. There's exceptions to the rule, as we shall see. Now, this is the one that's most interesting to me because it shows a complete lack of how social media works. This says, does this person have full-time responsibilities beyond independent punditry? Now, there's a lot of questions to ask here. The first one is the question that they bring up. And they say, again, there are exceptions. Tim Challies, for example, has proven to be one of the most trustworthy and reliable voices on the internet. So right off the bat, their standard doesn't make any sense at all. It doesn't make any sense because there are people who are online pundits that get paid a lot of money to be an online pundit. And that is their full-time responsibility. And there's a lot of people right now who are not full-time pundits, but within several years, they will be. AD, for example, that guy, his Patreon's going to blow up because he's running the SEO right now. If you search for the Gospel Coalition, if you search for Russell Moore, if you search for any of these sort of things on YouTube, his videos are at the top. He's running the game. He's making the plays right now. And so, but it doesn't matter that AD's full-time or if he's not full-time. I don't know how much money he's getting paid, supported on Patreon if he's doing this full-time, but he puts out a lot of content. He puts out a lot of great stuff. And it doesn't matter. Like, I don't even care if he's working 60 to 80 hours a week to do it. Like, the stuff he's putting out is amazing and fantastic. So his credibility is not determined by the fact that he has of his full-time responsibilities. This goes to show you that they don't see being online, creating live streams, doing these things as a legitimate career. I want to point something out. It's rumored that Ninja, who is a video game streamer, who just streamed video games, not a career there, right? It's rumored that he was paid $100 million by Microsoft to move exclusively from Twitch to Mixer. It's essentially a sports trade. Right? So he's on Twitch and they come to him and say, hey man, we'll give you $100 million but in exchange for the $100 million, you can only stream on our platform. And of course he took it. But just a few years ago, people were talking about these people who live in their basements who are streaming video games. There's not a legitimate career. They're neglecting their families. They're neglecting their wives, all this other stuff. But the truth is that now we know that no, it is a legitimate career option if you're good at it. If my kids are into video games, I would want to teach my children, look, it's okay to be into video games, but figure out a way you can make a living. If this is your passion, if this is what you love doing, figure a way to make a living doing this, whether it's programming it or whether it's creating your own live stream, whatever that is, figure a way to make money on it, work on it, do it to the glory of God. I'm not going to sit there and take something like video games and say, oh, that's just silly. That's not a real job. And that's exactly what's happening here. Online punditry, that's not a real job. Unless you're Tim Challies. And then we have the exception to the rule. So listen to what he says here. He says, he's an exception that proves the rule. When I read some people online, I can't help but think, what do you actually do for a living? I'm not talking about full-time moms either. No. So, what is it? I'm talking about people who don't seem to be running a church, running a business, running a family, punching in regular hours to pay the bills. Okay, first off, what if your online punditry is your business? What if it is your business? Look, I mean, think about it for a minute. I make online content for Apologia. It's a full-time bit. It's a full-time job. That's my business, is to create content online full-time. So the idea that there's just this idea that creating stuff or content for online is not a full-time job is insane. It's insanity. It just doesn't make sense. And so if you mainly hang out online, responding to every mention on Twitter, provoking your opponents, fishing for compliments, and getting into digital fights every few days, I wonder if you have real-world maturity and perspective to be helpful. I take inveterate see, they did this. This is a trap to make me look like I don't know what I'm talking about and discredit me. Inveterate populist and narcissist with a massive grain of salt. Well, I take narcissists with a grain of salt too, but it doesn't mean they don't say things that are accurate sometimes, right? Right, exactly. So again, they don't understand a Gospel Coalition does not understand the online economy. The fact that they can say this and think that people aren't making a living through Patreon. I mean, honestly, to be honest to goodness, you can make way more money online as a pundit than you can working at McDonald's, or as they say, punching in regular hours to pay the bills. Why would I punch in regular hours to pay the bills if I have a job where my Patreon supporters are supporting me full time? Like, that doesn't make any sense. People like Tim Bruggencate, who is massively supported on Patreon, right? But there are people that donate money in exchange for that individual to create content. That is a legitimate business. That's how economics work. I like the stuff you make. I donate on Patreon, and that money goes towards you creating content for me. That's an equal exchange. It's like, you make a cheeseburger, I pay you money, you give me the cheeseburger. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's not that difficult at all. So, now this one's interesting. Does this person have the commensurate education experience that makes him worth listening to? Yes, I know. The talk of academic degrees can sound hopelessly elitist. Yes, it does sound elitist. Why? Because it's elitist. Now, before I did this, I thought I wanted to see if they're consistent. And they are consistent to a fault, because I went to the Gospel Coalition and saw that they actually had job listings for digital content producers. and it's a part-time job, and it says education, higher education preferred. Now, anybody that knows anything about creating digital content knows that the worst thing you want is a film school student to come and make digital content. It's just not going to work. When I had a job, I was working for a social media agency, a massive one. And, I mean, we're talking millions of dollars they would bring in. And I headed up their video department. And when I got the job, I had to hire people. I've never hired people before. Like this, for like a legit, like these people are legitimately going to be working with me. So I read through tons of resumes, and I would see film school. And then I would look at their work, and it was awful. These people have never done any sort of content creation for profit ever. And then I would look at people who would send me a demo reel. The demo reel was amazing. It's like, man, these people are really hustling. These people really know what they're doing. And then guess what? They didn't go to film school. And the reason is because film school or a college education is not a factor in determining whether somebody has what it takes to be a good filmmaker or not. It's just not. It's just like saying, I'm only going to hire singers who have a formal education in music. Okay, but that doesn't mean they can sing in key. You can still pass music school and be able to sing off key. So this is incredibly... Somebody sent me the definition for that word, and it means fighter. Thank you. Cry out to him. I appreciate that. But what do I know? I don't have a formal education. So, he says, I prefer to listen to people who know more than I do, not simply emote their convictions more strongly. Now, look, a college degree doesn't determine whether somebody knows more about a subject. Cy-Chan Bruggencate doesn't have a college degree in apologetics, but he knows way more about apologetics than I ever will. A.D. Robles, I honestly don't know a better expert in the social justice, critical race stuff than him. And the reason is not because of his college degrees, which I think he might have one. I don't know. But even if he doesn't, it's his expertise on this subject matter is determined because he does this every day, because he's always posting content. That's where his expertise comes from. It's not in his college degree. I know for certain that there's nobody that studies the subject of social justice, critical race theory, the Gospel Coalition, and the people that are a part of that more than AD. And that's terrifying to them in such a way that they have to knowingly resort to sounding hopelessly elitist just to try and discredit them. It's just not going to work. It's not going to work. Is this person held accountable by any meaningful institutions? Like, oh, we just jump to here. Churches, absolutely. Like, this is important. This is critical. But it does not determine the truth of what they say. I want you to think about what's happening here. If you go to the Smithsonian Museum of Modern Art in D.C., you see garbage on a wall. It's a white painting that's all white, hung on a white wall. And there's no meaning to it. It doesn't mean anything because the ability to determine truth is given to the individual who's viewing the art. It's not the artist determining what is truth. See, in the Bible, art determines truth. The artist determines truth. The meaning of the art is not dependent on the individual. It's dependent on the Creator. When God spoke this world into existence and said it was good, it wasn't up to Adam to determine if it was good or not. It was good because God said so. And so there we see a principle that says what that art means, what that art says, is determined by the creator, not the individual. Remember, Adam had to name animals in accordance with their kind, based on how they were already made. He didn't get to redetermine what the animals were made. He named them based on how they were already made, how the artist already presented them. And he named them accordingly. So we see in Genesis 1, we have this understanding of artistic interpretation. I make a painting of Campbell's soup can. It is a painting of a Campbell's soup can. You cannot go and look at that painting and say, I don't know if it really looks more like SpaghettiOs to me, more like Chef Boyardee. So, yeah. So now we see here, we have all these stipulations, 7 stipulations. Some of them are good. Some of them are good points, especially when we're talking about Christian theology. But they all fail. And they're all based on this idea that truth is determined by the listener and not the creator of the content. Now, that doesn't mean that the creator of the content can be wrong. Of course they can be wrong, right? If for example, I paint a picture of a Campbell's soup can and say, this is Chef Boyardee, you would be like, no, that's not right. Exactly. But in that instance, the artist is lying. Because truth is objective and it's outside of these things. So again, when we look at a painting on a wall, the artist always has to have, because the reason is the artist always has to have an understanding of what's being said. And it's not up for the listener or the viewer to determine that truth. Or by truth, I mean what they mean by what they created. It is the artist's responsibility to tell you this is nothing more than a white painting on a wall. That's all it is. It's not your job to look at the painting on the wall and go, yeah, you know what? I think it's actually a black wall. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. So the problem here and the failure of the Gospel Coalition is that their assumption is that you need to determine the validity of something that's being said based on all these outside things, as opposed to just whether or not what was said is true. It's simple to determine if a painting on the wall is a Campbell's soup can or Chef Boyardee. That's simple. It's simple to understand. It's also simple to understand if it's not a painting of Chef Boyardee and it's a Campbell's soup can. And if the artist is telling you that it is a Chef Boyardee stand, it is Chef Boyardee when it's clearly Campbell's soup, I don't have to go and look at this guy's credentials and find out what kind of church he goes to and find out if his family is strong to determine that. I don't have to determine these 7 things to determine if it's Chef Boyardee or if it's Campbell's soup can. Because truth is objective and universal and outside of an individual's qualifications for leadership and outside of the kind of job he has and outside of the kind of family he has. Thank God that's true. Because that's true, we can understand a lot more about the world because we are all sinners, and placing this sort of standards on people to determining what is true online or not is just insane. Now, does this person have the necessary links and citations to bolster his assertions? Fairly often, I will have people in my church about all articles and allegations they read online. Usually, the accusations involve people that they thought they could trust, but now appear to be mixed up in some nefarious underworld. Now, this is interesting because this is obviously talking about George Soros funding Gospel Coalition or ERLC for sure. And we know that's true. The reason we know that's true is because Jim Wallace stated very clearly that he was funded by Soros, and he tried to write it off and say, well, we get donations from everybody. But he got a pretty significant one from Soros, and he had to admit that he did get that. And then we know that Jim Wallace and Russell Moore, we have a guy like Russ Meek who writes for Sojourners. So we see that connection there. There's an inherent connection between the ERLC and Sojourners. And so those sources are there. Those sources are valid. What we see here is the Gospel Coalition trying to say, well, this is just some sort of weird online conspiracy theory that's not really backed up by any credible authority, which we determine who are the credible authorities. And so that's what we see here. I think that the stuff that's being pointed out, the stuff about the Frankfurt School, the stuff about socialism and SJW and critical race theory, they are incredibly well-sourced. This isn't stuff that people are just making up. And there's a lot of things out there that are not well-sourced that the people that run in my circle don't reference or mention because there's just no way to verify it. So this idea that the people posting stuff online aren't well sourced, especially in reference to what's happening with the Gospel Coalition, it's just not true. You guys post stuff all the time. You guys deem yourself as a credible source, and most of the stuff we're arguing, we're using your stuff as source material. So either you guys are the credible ones or you're not. So, does this person express his opinions and state his case with a due sense of proportion? This rule of thumb will serve you well. Don't believe hysterics. If the matter is hand and truly grave, the facts should speak for this or themselves. Or if we must use hard words, make sure they are in conjunction with even finer arguments. When everything in one's public profile is a 5-alarm fire, I tend to think the pundit is interested in starting fires more than putting them out. My question about this, I mean, obviously I have people on my Facebook feed that just post conspiracy theory nonsense all the time. Everything's a conspiracy theory. Everything is just, and it's all unverified, right? But for the most part, people like that don't really gain a large platform. You have Alex Jones, who's obviously an exception, but a lot of what Alex Jones said was indeed true, and he was pretty early on unraveling that fact. But then there's a lot of stuff that he said that was just not. So when we're having these discussions about 5-alarm fires, there's also another important thing to realize that the Gospel Coalition doesn't understand, and that is production. When somebody is online, a lot of times when they're producing a show, they have an online persona. So who they are on TV or in public isn't necessarily the way they are in person. So somebody might come in, let's say, and they'll just be like, hey, everybody, welcome to the show. We got a great news and information for you. We're going to make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. They're not like that all the time. It is for show. It is for entertainment. It is to get people watching. But again, just because somebody goes, hey, everybody, welcome to the show. Hit that like button. Hey, make sure you subscribe. Send me some super chats. Just because they do that, but just because they have that high energy, doesn't negate their credibility. In fact, I would say that the energy that I bring to this show, for anybody that knows me, sometimes I'll be like on this show, like I'll be just incredibly angry about stuff like abortion, and I can't understand it, and I'll be angry. That's why I actually stand up now when I do the show. It is performance, and the people that know me in real life know like I'm like super quiet, super chill by myself most of the time. But that doesn't negate. That just means I know how to produce content. I know how to create something that's interesting. But that doesn't negate the facts of what I'm saying. The quality, the character of an individual. I guarantee you, Glenn Beck's online persona and his real life persona are completely different. I guarantee you, Alex Jones is not always 100%. Guaranteed. That's just not what it is. It's about performance, and that's something that books, you don't learn from writing books. That's something you don't learn on any other medium outside of produced content, video content. Once you start having to bring in the video and the audio, look, nobody's going to listen to people that just talk like this on YouTube every day, even though they're educated, even though they're interesting. This is why people ask me about making a podcast, or they'll ask me about creating content. And the first thing I always tell them is, okay, so if you and your friend are creating a podcast, the first thing I always say is, well, what is your character? What is your character? Who are you on this podcast? Are you and your co-host, you're making a podcast about theology because you sit around the table and you talk about theology all the time? That's not an excuse to make a podcast. When you're making a podcast, you want to create a show. You're creating theater for the mind. You're creating entertainment, so it's important to have a character, and sometimes that character is legitimately who that person is. Sometimes and all the time, that character that they make should be based on who they are generally. So there's a lot there, but when we're talking about, people who make 5-alarm fires all the time, or people who bring out like a high amount of energy, again, it doesn't discredit who they are. And it's silly, and it's something that the Gospel Coalition will never understand, because when Russell Moore speaks in public, he's just as boring when he makes his YouTube channel content. Right? Nobody coached Russell Moore and said, hey, Russell Moore, instead, well, here's what we're going to do. Instead of us doing the normal stuff you do where you just read from the teleprompter, we're just going to take the teleprompter away. We're going to put you in a restaurant, and you're just going to go, man. Russell Moore's not going to do that. He's not going to do that. Everything Russell Moore has to do is scripted. And that's why he's losing this fight. Because to Russell Moore, one of the problems is, we talk about these 5-alarm fires. One of the problems are that there are legitimate 5-alarm fires, and people want to act like to say there's a 5-alarm fire is illegitimate or discredit you. If there legitimately is a 5-alarm fire, I would hope that the Gospel Coalition and Russell Moore and the ERLC would speak more passionately about the 5-alarm fire. But they won't. And because they won't, the 5-alarm fire that is us social media content creators will continue on. We're going to continue on. So again, does this person exhibit any interest in trying to understand the arguments of others, or speak carefully about what he means to criticize? So again, understanding the argument of someone doesn't determine the truth of yours. It just doesn't. If I'm street preaching, for example, and I'm debating an atheist on the street, and this guy is just raving, and like he's a mad lunatic, and he's trying to tell me why it's wrong to say that homosexuality is a sin, it really doesn't matter if I understand his argument, because he's wrong. He's wrong. When we're pushing social justice, critical race theory, that stuff is wrong. And I have the Bible that tells me what's true in these matters and how to deal with it. And what they're saying is wrong. I don't have to understand them. And now I can bring out points in their argument and say, well, yeah, absolutely. There's a significant portion of the black community that's in prison, and I can make a case from there as to why that is wrong, and then I can go to Scripture. But I don't have to understand someone's argument or to think through someone's argument to be able to determine if it's right or wrong. And when I say think through, I mean I don't need to get an academic degree. I don't need to study for hours and hours their position in order to determine if it's right or wrong. I can look at Scripture. So, like they said above, when we have to look at something for 2 to 3 weeks, have we studied this topic for more than 2 to 3 weeks before we're making a determination on it? Sometimes that's not necessary. I don't have to study the transgendered movement for 2 to 3 weeks to determine that the Bible says it's foolishness. And so sometimes, those sort of things are just not necessary. So anyway, then he goes into all this stuff, and so this is important at the end. Granted, these tests aren't foolproof. There are exceptions to all these rules, but rarely does someone break all or most of these rules and prove to be a trustworthy voice. We owe it to our families, our friends, and churches and ourselves to think critically before we take in gossip. See, now the assumption is, out of nowhere, we're talking about online punditry and whether or not certain facts are right or wrong. And now it's just jumps this massive leap into gossip, slander, and logical nincompoopery, and ill-founded bloviating passed off as courage. Well, I think you guys can see the fear of the Gospel Coalition. The fear that they have in terms of producing digital content they're incapable of. Russell Moore is not interesting online. He doesn't know. You're never going to see Russell Moore subscribe to Restream so he can stream to YouTube. You're never going to see Russell Moore with an Elgato Stream Deck. You're never going to see Russell Moore sitting at his desk with lights above him and ready to just go live at a moment's notice. You're never going to see Russell Moore do that. You're never going to see Russell Moore even upload his own YouTube video to his own channel. He's got people that do that for him. You're never just going to see Russell Moore go off the hip. You're not going to see it. You're not going to see that authenticity from Russell Moore. It's not going to happen. And if it does happen, it's going to be extremely well calculated and probably a response to maybe even my video. Just to show that he will. I'm just kidding. He'll never respond. He'll never acknowledge my video exists. But the point is that the reason why social media punditry is taking off is because there are no gates. AD can say something tomorrow that I disagree with, and I can send him a direct message on Twitter, and I can be like, hey, D, I disagreed with you. Let me come on your show. Let's have a friendly conversation and debate that. And you know what AD will do? He'll let me on his show, and we'll have that discussion, and it'll be fun, and we'll have a great time. And at the end, we'll still be friends. That's not what you see with the Gospel Coalition, though. That's not what you see with the ERLC. There's no arguing back and forth and debating scriptures. Everybody's lockstep. And the fact that AD's viewers, my viewers, Apologia's viewers, Cross Politics viewers, the fact that within this circle, that, by the way, was started just because there wasn't anything else. And we saw this is where things were going. But out of that, there's a lot of people that disagree on things. Matt Williams with How to Build a Tent, I disagree with him on things all the time. And out of this disagreement, there's like this unity and diversity that's happening with online punditry that the Gospel Coalition doesn't have. Sure, they have Presbyterians and Baptists. But there's a unity and diversity that's happening with online punditry that's even bigger and more meaningful. Really, really meaningful. eschatology, for example. And there's this unity among these things. Eschatology probably isn't really the sort of meaning. What I meant is from different, not necessarily theological, but just cultural backgrounds. There's people from different cultural backgrounds. There's people with college degrees and seminary professors, and then there's pastors, and then there's laymen, and they're all together. And they're all making content. And I could say something on here, and I know very well Cross Politic would do an episode and respond to it if they disagreed. But I also know, at the end of the day, I would love every minute of them rebutting me. And I would love them at the end of that episode all the more for doing it. And that's something you don't see with the Gospel Coalition. That would be my question to ask for online pundits is, how often do you associate with people who don't have college degrees? How often do you associate with people that are creating content that aren't well educated from a classical stance? How often do you trust the opinions of people that aren't within your circle of influence? Those are all important questions. So what's happening now, and I'll end with this, what's happening now is there's a massive movement. Fight Laugh Feast Club, their subscribers are starting to see the value in this. Apologia Studios Club, Apologia All Access. What's happening now is people aren't just sitting around making content anymore. This has become a full-time job for a lot of people. This has become their life. And that's only going to make things better. Because what started as people sitting in their room making YouTube videos for fun has led to other people saying, there's actual value to this, and I want to give my money to make sure that I see more of it. And I'm sorry, but all your 7 questions to ask in evaluating online pundits, it falls apart when people start paying for their content and not paying for yours. There's an inherent education that comes with making content in such a way that people donate to your Patreon. That comes with making content in such a way that causes people to join the Fight Laugh Feast Club or Apologia All Access. There's a certain credibility now that doesn't matter about those 7 questions that you have from an elitist perch. What matters is that people are saying things and they're true, and people are willing to pay other people to continue to speak on that truth. And that terrifies the Gospel Coalition. It terrifies them. The fact that they had to write this article is terrifying. There were meetings, there were discussions, people reviewed and edited this. This isn't something Kevin DeYoung just sat down and wrote one night and hit post on. They don't work that quick. We do. We got 1 button streaming. We do. But they don't. So when they're writing an article warning you to stay away from online pundits and warning you about the negative aspects of social media engagement, they're trying to hold on. They're trying to hold on. They're trying to hold on to this class system. And the thing is, if the Gospel Coalition never went this crazy liberal route, if they never went this way, every single one of us at Cross Politic, Apologia, AD, How to Build a Tent, we would love to help them do what we're doing. But they don't want any part of it. They don't want any part of it. They're the gatekeepers. They're the taxi cab drivers that have been swallowed up by Lyft and Uber. And we're the Lyft and Uber. And you're going to have to deal with us. We're here to stay. And I'll end it with there. So just before I go, shout out to everybody that's causing all this stuff to happen with AD and everybody else. Just thanks to everybody that's making content, whether it's good or not, even if it's not good. Just keep making it. Keep putting stuff out there. Eventually you'll get it. You'll figure it out. I mean, I've come a long way just in the past few months. From when my desk was huddled over in a corner and I was doing these things, to saying, I really want to do this. I really feel calling in a direction to do this. So I'm going to get a standing desk. I'm going to get lights for the background. I'm going to make sure my lighting is right. And that stuff comes over time, and the show develops too. So let me put that as a word of encouragement for people that want to make online content. Just make online content. It's not going to be good. Your first episode's not going to be amazing. It's 2 years from now, they're going to get better, and they're going to get better, and they're going to get better, and you're going to get better. You're going to know what you want. Like, I was just having a conversation with Robert Reese the other day, or last night, and he was telling me how amazing it was that at the end of the stream I did last week, or this week, I was able to debate an agnostic on universal health care and tie that politics into the gospel. And I'm like, yeah, that's the direction I want to go. I want to do more live call-ins and talking to people and that sort of thing. That sounds awesome. But it doesn't come all at once. It's not like I sat down one day and was like, this is exactly the format for my live streams. No, just do it. Just do it. God will lead you to your audience and how that works. Which is a lot different than anything the Gospel Coalition would ever tell anybody about making content. I would like to see the Gospel Coalition make some instructional videos on how to do live streaming for the glory of God. Of course, they would add that. I don't think we'll ever see it, though. I don't think they want to give credibility to that as a platform. But it's already credible, Gospel Coalition. We're here. We haven't just arrived at the gates. We're starting to chip away at your wood, man. We're starting to get the battering rams. They're winding up. They're about to hit that door. And it's not going to take long. It's just going to, you know what? It's just honestly, the only difference is the amount of money you guys have to keep the appearance of your credibility. But once more people start finding us and start donating to us and start sending super chats and start sending Patreons, and once other people, actually more wealthier business owners, actually start investing in this sort of content as a means to make a lot of money, once live streamers in Christianity start getting those sort of deals, you guys are gone. You guys are gone, because I'm going to tell you what, the live streamers are going to write books too. That's Toby Sumter, Cross Politic. He writes books. He has a printing press that can write books. Anybody can make a Kindle book right now. You have nothing. The Gospel Coalition has nothing. There's nothing the Gospel Coalition has that other people don't anymore. And so the only thing they have are these blogs from their perch that tell you to stay away. So, anyways, that does it for that episode. I'll stay around, see if there's any questions in the chats. Thank you guys so much for just being a part of that. I really appreciate your comments. I'm reading you. Keep it up, man. Jacob Anthony Beal, thank you. And then Eddie Brown says, I really love your content, by the way. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. I'm really thankful for this setup that I have, that I can just flip on one button, actually two buttons, because I rise my desk up. But just do that and be able to speak to you guys. I really hope you guys continue to share and promote the videos. Keep the content going. I know there's not a lot of people because we're not doing a debate live stream, and a lot of people are confused and wondering what's happened. But there's important information I thought that needed to happen, needed to come out, and I hope you guys really like it and appreciate it. But anyway, that does it for this episode. I've shown that we've exposed YouTube's awful stuff. So somebody said, I'm watching this live instead of the Dividing Line live. You should be proud. Hey, man. That's my elder, man. You can't do that. You can't do that. Now you're putting me in a dangerous situation. No, it's good. That's the great thing about online content. It's video on demand. You can watch it anytime. So, and if anybody doesn't care about view counts and SEO and live watchers, it's probably James Way. He could care less. But anyway, really encouraging for me, as I have a few things in the pipeline. Oh, thanks, Lame Man Gaming. Hey, man, I've seen some of your stuff, dude. I've seen some of your stuff. Yeah, see? Uh-oh. I just said Lame Man Gaming on my stream. I must have just platformed him. I hope he's credible. See how that works? See how that works? So, yeah, man, you just got platformed. So, awesome. Well, this has been great. I really enjoyed this. Really appreciate this. You guys are awesome. Thank you guys so much for just joining the chat and being a part of it, and just really encouraging me. Please be sure, the best way to encourage me, of course, is just to share the content, like on Patreon, of course. I think my first month of Patreon comes up, and real soon, and so I'll try to get some benefits for my Patreon. Not a lot of Patreon. I think I have like maybe 3 or 4. But you know what? It's you got to start somewhere. Chance Summer says, "I love these, bro. Keep it up." Thanks, Chance. Really appreciate it. If you keep sharing and liking and subscribing, then I'll keep doing it. That's just pretty much how the currency works on social media, right? Like a share is valuable, a like is valuable, all those things are valuable, and so doing that is like paying me. Even if you don't support me on Patreon, that still means a lot. So again, I hope that I explained that good enough. I hope I did that well. I have a lot more to say on that subject. But I think what I'll do is I'll set it up on my Patreon. I'll set it up on my Patreon so that maybe we'll have some private live streams for Patreon members where we can discuss SEO and analytics and how to make sure your stuff is seen. Maybe we'll do something like that for Patreon members in the future. Once we get but just maybe a little bit more than 4 people, we'll start doing some live streams that'll really help other people. Because this is what I want to do. I want to help other people do these sort of things. It's not hard. It's not that expensive. You don't even need as nice of a setup as I have. Look, I mean, my setup isn't even nice. My camera is permanently tilted, and I cannot figure out how to get this arm to like not be. I thought it might just be, I don't know. You guys just saw my mattress. Anybody want a mattress? We need to get rid of that. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys for being a part of the chat, and I've enjoyed every single minute of it. And you guys are the best, and you guys are my heroes. I need a sign off, don't I? I don't have a sign off yet. Probably because every time I'm signing off, I'm looking for the end chat button, which I'm having a really hard time. See, guys, you're not going to be perfect when you do these live streams. That's the first thing you need to throw away. I think I closed out my my window for the stream, so I can't end it. Here we go. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys have a great day. Oh, Chance, you said you should get a green screen. Those are really fun setting up. I don't like green screens, man. I'm not a fan of that sort of stuff. But